From sun-soaked beaches to bustling city streets, tourists seeking the peace of paradise have found themselves in the crossfire of ruthless cartels. Join us as we uncover the chilling stories behind some of the most disturbing deaths, where vacations turned into nightmares and idyllic getaways became scenes of unimaginable horror. Are you ready to explore the dark side of paradise? On November 4th, 2019, several members of the Lee Baron and Langford families, American-Mexican Mormons, were on their way to a wedding. It was supposed to be a day filled with joy. Instead, it became a horrific act of violence in northern Mexico, near the United States border, an act that shocked both nations. By the end of the day, 9 people, 3 women and 6 young children, were dead due to a complicated history and the usual cartel violence plaguing the region. The LeBaron and Langford families are Mormon families who have resided in La Mora, Mexico for over a century. These families initially migrated from the United States in the early 20th century, seeking refuge after the US government outlawed polygamy, which was then part of their faith. Settling in northern Mexico, they established communities like La Mora in Sonora and Colonia LeBaron in Chihuahua, which became home to many dual US-Mexican citizens. Time passed, and religious practices changed, but the families continued to reside in the region. However, over the years, the families faced threats and violence, particularly from drug cartels. In recent years, the LeBaron family in particular has been outspoken against cartel violence, further escalating tensions with criminal groups. It certainly didn't help that the area was a battleground for control over bountiful drug smuggling routes. In November 2019, Los Salazar, an affiliate of the infamous Sinaloa cartel, and La Linea, an offshoot of the Juarez cartel, were actively fighting over the region. Unbeknownst to the LeBaron and Langford families, earlier on November 4th, the very road they were driving on had been the scene of a fierce shootout between Los Salazar and La Linea. As such, tensions were high. It was time to leave for the wedding. Ronita Miller LeBaron and her 4 children set out in the first vehicle, followed by 2 other SUVs driven by Donna Ray Langford and Christina Marie Langford, each with their children. But as the 3 cars approached the municipality of Bavispe, Sonora, they were ambushed by multiple gunmen. Christina Langford realized they were in grave danger. She decided to get out of the vehicle and signal that they weren't members of the rival cartel. But before doing so, Christina took her baby daughter, Faith, and carefully placed her on the floor of her SUV to protect her. When Christina exited her car, she started waving her arms to signal her innocence, but the gunmen didn't care. They opened fire and killed the woman. The second white Suburban was carrying Donna Langford and 9 children. Gunfire ripped into the car, killing Donna and 2 of her sons, 11-year-old Trevor and 3-year-old Rogan. Ronita Miller LeBaron's car was shot up and burst into flames. Ronita was killed, and so were her 4 children, her 6-month-old twins, Titus and Tiana, her 10-year-old daughter, Crystal, and 12-year-old son, Howard. But 8 of the children, some of them merely infants, had survived. In the horrifying aftermath, Donna's quick-thinking 13-year-old son, Devin, took charge of the situation. He covered his siblings, some of whom were injured, with branches to hide them, then he left to get help. Devin walked 13 miles back to La Mora. But as time passed, Devin's 9-year-old sister grew more concerned. The little girl decided to follow her brother. She too walked for hours to seek help. The official search for the survivors started between 6 and 7 p.m. The children who survived were found at 8:30 p.m., with the exception of the children who went on foot in search of assistance. At 9:45 p.m., the girl who went for help was also found. Relatives from La Mora tried to reach them before that, but were turned back by gunfire. 5 of the children were seriously wounded, and as such, were flown to the United States to receive hospital care. The 3 others who were not injured were returned to their families in La Mora. The aftermath of the massacre saw a robust response from both Mexican and US authorities. Family members visited the scene under the protection of the Mexican army, and funerals were held with attendees from as far as North Dakota. The Mexican government attributed the attack to a case of mistaken identity, believing the family's vehicles were mistaken for those of a rival cartel. However, There is speculation that the family's outspoken stance against cartel violence may have played a role. However, other theories pertain to events that happened prior to the attack. As such, it was alleged that in the months leading up to the massacre, Los Salazar warned residents against buying fuel across state lines in Chihuahua, and new enforcers in the area began exhibiting increasingly aggressive behavior. Even more, the La Mora community, including the LeBaron and Langford families, had reportedly reached a fragile understanding with Los Salazar, one of the warring cartels. According to some sources, La Linea may have targeted the Mormons to send a message to Los Salazar about their presence and influence in the region. Following the massacre, 31 individuals with apparent ties to La Linea and the Juarez cartel were detained by Mexican authorities. However, only 7 of them have been charged with the killings. The supposed mastermind of the massacre, Roberto González Montes, allegedly an ex-cop, was arrested on November 25, 2020. On August 11, 2023, 5 childhood friends were returning home after attending a festival. But Roberto Olmeda, Diego Lara, Uriel Galvan, Dante Cedillo, and Jaime Martinez never made it home. Their families desperately looked for answers. But when a terrifying video showing the 5 young men bound and gagged was uploaded to social media, it became obvious that something horrifying happened to them, most likely at the hands of one of Mexico's most ruthless cartels. Roberto Olmeda, 20, Diego Lara, 20, Uriel Galvan, 19, Dante Cedillo, 22, and Jaime Martinez, 21, were friends and college students from Lagos de Moreno. The 5 young men would often spend time together. It was obvious that their bond was strong. Roberto was studying engineering at the university. Diego was a blacksmith, working in his father's shop. Uriel was a passionate cyclist and the youngest of the group. Dante was a professional cyclist who had recently started a business, and Jaime worked as a bricklayer. Each had a promising future ahead, with aspirations to succeed in their respective fields. On August 11th, they attended a festival, unaware that this would mark their last happy moments together. After attending the annual festival celebrating a town's patron saint, the friends decided to head home. One of them texted a family member at around 10:55 p.m., letting them know he was coming home. But then, something happened. They were driving through San Miguel when witnesses reported they were intercepted by 10 armed men. The gunmen forcibly removed them from their vehicle and transported them in a white pickup truck and a van with blacked-out windows. This marked the beginning of their horrifying ordeal. Once kidnapped, the 5 friends were taken to a remote location. There, they were subjected to unimaginable torture. First, the gunmen tied their hands behind their backs and bound their mouths with duct tape. The gunmen then proceeded to record the whole ordeal. One of the young men was forced to beat, stab, and decapitate his friend under the threat of his own death. The friends were tortured and killed. Soon after, they were reported missing. In the meantime, the horrifying video of their last moments was released on social media. The Mexican authorities launched a thorough investigation into the case. The Attorney General's office in Jalisco, along with federal prosecutors, led the inquiry, given the involvement of organized crime. The video shocked the nation, and even more drew international attention to the escalating violence in Jalisco. Authorities later discovered 4 burned human skulls and significant bloodstains at a property in the Orilla del Agua neighborhood, suggesting the site of the brutal killings. Additionally, a burnt-out Volkswagen Jetta containing human remains was found, believed to belong to Diego Lara. According to official reports, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, known for its brutal enforcement methods, was responsible for the abduction. The cartel had reportedly lured the men under the guise of a job offer, a tactic used to recruit new members into their ranks. The 5 friends were allegedly offered positions as security guards through a call center linked to the cartel, which posted fake job offers to trap unsuspecting victims. Once brought to the property in the Orilla del Agua neighborhood, the 5 friends were faced with a choice: become members of the cartel or be killed. When they refused to pledge allegiance to the cartel, the friends were tortured and killed. Governor Enrique Alfaro condemned the heinous act, which he described as a senseless and direct attack against the stability of Mexico. He emphasized the need for a strong governmental response to combat the cartel's influence and protect the citizens of Jalisco. Several experts have highlighted the cartel's strategy of forced recruitment through call centers, particularly targeting young individuals from neighboring states. According to these experts, CJNG has established numerous training and recruitment centers in the region, coercing new recruits into committing violent acts to prove their loyalty. On February 9, 2024, 44-year-old Nico Honabach was enjoying a getaway at the Mia Beach Club in Tulum, Mexico, a popular destination for tourists. Nico had spent a great day in the company of her two beloved dogs, Skylar and Coco, and was just about to leave when tragedy ensued, leaving behind a world of hurt for Carl Perman, Nico's husband of 15 years. Nico was a Los Angeles native with a significant following on Instagram, where she documented her glamorous life and travels. She was a cheerful person who loved to travel. As such, she split her time between Beverly Hills, California, and Cancun, Mexico. Nico had been feeling increasingly unsafe in Los Angeles due to rising crime and homelessness. She had recently survived a harrowing experience. Once, while out on a walk with her two dogs, Nico was chased by a person with a knife. This prompted her to decide to spend more time in Cancun. Her husband, Carl Perman, a former DEA agent with extensive law enforcement experience, agreed with Nico. On that fateful day, Nico had just finished eating and was preparing to pay her bill at the Mia Beach Club restaurant when the unimaginable happened. It was about 6:40 p.m. that Sunday when a man ran into the restaurant, chased by another armed man. The first man was Sean Billery, a 22-year-old Belizean with known cartel affiliations. The second man was another drug dealer. As Billery attempted to flee, his pursuers opened fire. Tourists initially mistook the gunfire for fireworks, but then the gunman shot Billery once in the back. Unable to run anymore, Billery was overtaken by the gunman, who then opened fire several more times. It was then that one of the stray bullets struck and killed Nico. According to several witnesses, staff didn't react. They didn't check on Nico. It was other guests that rushed to her aid, but it was too late. Carl, Nico's husband, was out of town at the time of the incident. He was traveling for work when he received a devastating call from a friend informing him about the shooting. Perman, utilizing his extensive background in law enforcement, immediately took steps to confirm his wife's identity and address the situation with local authorities. However, according to Carl himself, he encountered significant obstacles. Once he arrived in Tulum, Perman faced uncooperative and initially dismissive local authorities. He was desperate. His grief was immense. Still, Carl had to spend hours at the Homicide Investigations Office demanding to see Nico's body to confirm her identity. To top things off, and to add insult to injury, local media reports falsely suggested Nico's involvement in drug-related activities. Carl had to provide substantial evidence, including Nico's passport and marriage certificate, to refute these claims and defend her reputation. Mexican authorities eventually issued an apology. There are no public updates on the investigation. The personal circumstances of Nico's untimely death added to the tragedy. She had fled Los Angeles fearing for her safety, but despite her fears, Nico's tragic fate unfolded far from her troubled hometown, in a place where she had sought refuge. On October 24, 2018, 34-year-old Patrick Braxton Andrew, from North Carolina, left on what was supposed to be a trip to remember in Mexico, where he planned to visit the Copper Canyon National Park before meeting up with his brother in Mexico City. But Patrick never arrived in Mexico City. The 34-year-old loved Latin America and all it had to offer: the food, the people, the cultural heritage, and especially the language. Patrick had discovered his love for all things Latin America a few years after college, when he went on an 18-month journey that took him to Mexico and the northern parts of South America. That trip, for which he had spent years working hard and earning money, changed his life. Patrick decided to learn Spanish, a subject he had struggled with while he was at school. He found out that he had a knack for the language. When he returned home, he was already fluent, which enabled him to become a Spanish teacher. In 2018, Patrick was also the owner of a tutoring and mentoring business. It was either October 26th or October 27th when Patrick arrived in Urique, a municipality in Mexico's northwestern state of Chihuahua. Despite the fact that Chihuahua is known to be dangerous due to crime and other drug-related activities, Patrick was excited to make the most of his time in the area and spent 2 days exploring it after checking into a local hotel. On October 28, 2018, Patrick spoke with his parents at approximately 2:51 p.m., after which he left his hotel and went on a hike to a spot known as La Playita. The day was beautiful, the country was perfect, and everything was going according to plan. Or so the man thought. Kerry Braxton Andrew was in Mexico City 2 days later, waiting for his brother. They were supposed to meet. Their meeting had been scheduled a long time before. However, Patrick never showed up. To make things worse, the family then realized he hadn't communicated with them in 2 days. This was cause for concern. Patrick's family was truly beginning to worry. When they got in touch with the owner of the hotel where Patrick had been staying, they were shocked to learn that Patrick had not returned from his walk 2 days before. Patrick's family alerted the police. In an attempt to locate Patrick, more than 100 Mexican police officers began scouring the Copper Canyon area in search of the 34-year-old. Drones and an aircraft were used in the search, but they found nothing, not even the tiniest sign of his presence. When authorities discovered a body on November 17th, Patrick's family feared the worst, and they were right. The body was quickly identified as Patrick Braxton Andrew. His body was discovered approximately 1 mile from Las Lajas in Urique and the village of Guapalena. This baffled everyone involved, since a comprehensive search of the area had already been conducted. The fact that the body had been discovered in an area devoid of flora and on a stony surface further made matters more perplexing, because it was covered with pine leaves and reddish dirt. An autopsy and an educated guess were all it took to determine Patrick's fate. After being shot in the head, he was buried somewhere in the mountains, dug up, and dumped off the road, where he was eventually discovered by the police. During the inquiry, the governor of Chihuahua announced that Patrick had been assassinated. Furthermore, according to Chihuahua Attorney General Cesar Peniche Esquivel, Patrick came across members of a Sinaloa cartel drug trafficking cell at some point during his walk in La Playita. It's possible that Jose Noriel Portillo Gil, aka El Chueco, or one of his men assassinated Patrick after mistaking him for an agent of the United States Drug Enforcement Administration. Mexican officials swiftly put an end to rumors that Patrick was the victim of a drug deal gone wrong, characterizing him as an innocent victim who suffered the misfortune of crossing paths with El Chueco. In October 2021, Angeli Riot arrived in Tulum, Mexico, looking forward to celebrating her 26th birthday on Friday. Angeli Riot, a 25-year-old California resident, was a vibrant person who loved traveling around the globe. But unbeknownst to Angeli, her visit to Tulum would be her last one, ever. Originally from India, Angeli had made a home for herself in San Jose, California. She was a senior site reliability engineer at LinkedIn with a promising career in tech, previously working at Yahoo for 5 years. Even more, Angeli was an influencer known for her travels, which she frequently shared on social media. More than 40,000 people followed her Instagram account in order to keep up with Angeli's travels and adventures. The young woman had what looked like an active and fulfilling life. Before her trip to Tulum, she had visited Glacier National Park in Montana, completing the challenging Grinnell Glacier Trail hike. Her passion for exploring new places was evident in her detailed and enthusiastic posts, where she often encouraged her followers to embark on similar adventures. Once she arrived in Tulum, Mexico, Angeli spent her days exploring and sharing her experiences on social media. It was the evening of October 20th, 2021, a Wednesday, and Angeli was at the La Malquerida bar, enjoying her evening. But things were about to take a turn for the worse, and there was nothing that Angeli, or anyone else really, could do to prevent it. All of a sudden, several gunmen, who appeared to be chasing a rival drug dealer, opened fire in the bar. Angeli Riot and another woman, 35-year-old Jennifer Hensoldt from Germany, were caught in the middle of the violent altercation. Angeli was shot and killed on the spot, She was pronounced dead at the scene, while Hensoldt succumbed to her injuries at a local hospital. The shooting also left 3 other foreign tourists injured: 2 German men, aged 26 and 25, and a 21-year-old woman from the Netherlands. The assailant's target, a local drug dealer involved in street-level drug sales, sparked the deadly gunfight. Authorities arrested José Antonio Lila Perez, 25, who was identified from footage outside the scene in connection with the shooting. The Quintana Roo State Attorney General's office and local authorities have been grappling with rising violence and corruption in popular tourist destinations such as Tulum, Playa del Carmen, and Cancun. The administration of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has invested significantly in Tulum, including plans for an international airport and a Maya train stop. Yet these efforts are now overshadowed by the escalating crime rates. Following the incident, the German Foreign Office issued a travel advisory, urging its citizens in Tulum or Playa del Carmen to remain within secure hotel facilities. Tulum's reputation as a calm, carefree beach town has been severely damaged. The local drug gang, Los Pelones, linked to the Gulf Cartel, has been extorting protection money from bars and nightclubs. Their influence, coupled with the presence of rival groups such as the Jalisco Cartel, has turned once peaceful areas into battlegrounds, threatening the safety of both locals and tourists.